me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are running the meeting tonight under our standard rules. We will address each article as they come up. We'll have a motion, a second, and then discussion on that article. Amendments can be provided. They should be done in writing to me, and we'll proceed to discuss the amendment itself. Amendments get voted on. The general articles do not. They move to the warrant as we determine how we want them to be. I'm going to start this evening by introducing Ms. Harrington, who is chair of the Town Council.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming this evening. I want to start out by introducing everyone. To my right is Councillor Dan Dwyer. To my left is Councillor Tom Mahan. Beside him is Councillor Lon Woods. Beside him is Finley Rothaus. Beside him is Councillor Bill Boyd. And last but not least, on my left is Councillor Tom Koenig. Furthest on my right is the town attorney, Matt Upton. And to his left is our town manager, Eileen Carbonell.
And behind you, because they have official positions?
What? Okay. Behind me is Finance Director Paul McKelly and Diane Trippett, who is the clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That'll do us. We're going to start with Article number 2. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $31,472,126. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $27,646,335, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town or by law. Or the town council may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Tom, thank you. And
Madam Moderator, I move Article 2 as presented.
And second by Nancy. Thank you. Tom, you want to speak to this?
Yes, I do. Very quickly, the overview on the budget starts out with staffing and benefits. This contains 3 additional full-time positions and 3 part-time positions. This includes 2 police officers, 3 part-time in solid waste, town clerk, tax collector's office, code enforcement, and the library is converting 2 part-time positions to 1 full-time position. There's been a significant reduction in our health insurance costs because of the congruence of all the contracts this year. Our cost for health care has been reduced by $312,000. This is the 3rd year of the contracts we have for this, which reduced the office copay, the pharmacy copay, and the premium cost share, which is now 10% for all, will be 10% for all employees if Article 3 is adopted. The New Hampshire retirement system rate costs have also increased by $124,000. These are various contribution rate increases across Groups 1 and Group 2. Group 1 are public safety employees, Group 2 are all others, or Group 1 are all others, I'm sorry. In keeping with the Council's long-standing commitment to maintain infrastructure, you will see a additional $369,000 to capital reserve fund deposits to replenish these funds. We're paving DW Highway from the Chamberlain Bridge at the Sauhegan to Reeds Ferry Lumber. We are rebuilding the Bean Road Bridge, which was reduced in weight. The weight limit was reduced last year because of the significant deterioration of the bridge. This is a $1.6 million project. With state bridge aid, it's an 80-20 split between the state at $1.28 million and the town at $320,000. We are purchasing an additional ambulance at a cost of $200,000, and there are other miscellaneous capital items in here, including Wasserman Park improvements and highway garage roof repairs. Again, these are all things that are taken out of capital reserve funds, so at this point we've already, money's been appropriated and set aside, so there's no impact on the tax rate. Actually, this year our capital reserve funds withdrawals have decreased by $900,000. These are projects that the town saves for over a number of years and are 100% offset by the revenue from the capital reserve funds, state and federal aid, as we said, with cost-sharing issues. Finally, there are other increases in legal and consulting. We now have 6 contracts to negotiate in the next fiscal year, and there are also the expenses associated with the New England Direct Pipeline. There's decreases in gasoline and diesel due to the current market pricing that we're taking advantage of. Therefore, the estimated town portion of the tax rate is set to increase by 8 cents, or about 1.3%. As presented, the tax rate for next year will be roughly $5. The town portion of the tax rate will be roughly $5.54. Again, that's dependent on revenue issues and other things that can occur during the year. That will be determined in October when we set the tax rate with the Department of Revenue Administration. And at this point, I yield the floor to questions.
May I make one quick comment?
Certainly.
During the budget season, I had surgery and I was missing for several of the budget meetings, and that's why Councilor Mahan is doing the presentation. But I also wanted to take this opportunity to thank him for maintaining everything while I was out. And yes, I did watch a couple of them, and I was glad I was home recuperating. So, thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion on Article 2? Seeing none,
Hi, my name's Gina Rosati from 15 Dunbarton Drive, and I would like to propose that we add $10,000 to the operating budget for the purpose of giving raises to library personnel who haven't had a raise in, how long? 3 years? 5 years? Thank you.
you've got that in writing for me? The amendment is to change the bottom line on the budget by increasing it by $10,000. That won't change the default budget, but you're changing the proposed budget. Do I have a second? You can't second your own motion. Thank you. Got it, John. All right. We're going to talk about adding the $10,000 to the bottom line, not the rest of the budget, just that one particular item. Would you like to discuss it further?
I think this was brought up at one of the last town meetings, and I remember talking to Jen Jobin, and I've been volunteering in the school libraries for 14 years because I don't mind working for free, but I know these people have bills to pay and probably would like to get paid, and if they haven't had a raise in 5 years, I don't think $10,000 is outrageous to give them a raise. So I think it would be the right thing to do. Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, does the motion mention specifically the library?
The motion is to add $10,000 to the operating budget. The justification for it is the library, but all you can do, all this meeting can do, is add to the bottom line of the budget. So you're increasing the budget by $10,000. What you do with that money is up to you.
Yes, it is, and that's part of the issue, is that you can put the money in there, and there's no obligation on the part of the council to use the money for the purpose that's stated from the floor. Once the bottom line is adopted by state law, we have total control over how that money is expended. Our only stricture is that we cannot exceed the amount appropriated. So this is not to be nasty about it or anything like that, okay? Nasty is probably not a good word, but it's the quickest one I could think of, okay? But when you do this, okay, and you just put money into the bottom line, we've had this discussion at other times, most recently with dealing with the deputy fire chief position about 8 years ago, that you could put the money in there, but there's no obligation for this council to use that money for the purpose for which you want to apply it. In fact, there's no application in there in the motion for where it's to go.
And there's no obligation to spend it on anything.
Right. Okay, so it would just be lapsed at the end of the year and either return to the taxpayers or put in the unreserved fund balance.
I'm going to let Carol speak first and then Dan.
Carol Lang, 7 Wilson Hill Road. My thought process, and I'm sort of on the fence as to whether I'm agreeing with the motion, but in response to Mr. Mahan's comments, if you take that argument to its logical conclusion, there would be no point in anyone ever amending the operating budget at town meeting if you follow that through. I agree there is no legal obligation on the council to spend the money on this purpose, but if it were passed at town meeting and if it were passed at the ballot box, I would think it would behoove the town council to give serious consideration to spending it for the purpose for which it was recommended. Thank you.
Dan?
Just to clarify a couple things, because one, they have got a raise within 5 years, so if you want to come up and say certain things, you just have to have some of the facts straight. They did get a raise, many on the staff, over the last 5 years. Number two, if you want to do this, you just have to reword your motion. What Tom is alluding to is there's no obligation the way you wrote it. If you want to say certain staff, minusing management, you just have to write a more clearer, precise motion and let
Dan,
the chip.
that doesn't change it.
No?
You have, unless you do it as a special warrant article, you have no way of controlling it.
If you want the pulse of the room, that's what I would do. If I were you, you want to get the pulse of the room to see if it passed, at least now I know as I'm going back to the council next year that this happened and it's registered for history. If it doesn't hold the weight, it doesn't hold the weight.
That's correct.
But I'm giving you an out on making your motion stronger for what it's worth.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Tom?
Yeah, we did discuss this a couple of times during our budget deliberations, and we did give it careful consideration, but we were not inclined to include the money in the budget.
Tom?
Thanks. I just wanted to point out that this request came before the town manager, and in discussions with the library director and the town manager, she ended up bringing forth a budget to the town council that did not include the $10,000. The request was then brought before the town council, and again it was made requesting that we add that money into the budget, and there was not enough justification to convince the 7 members of the town council to add that money into the budget. So to come in now and ask for us to add $10,000 to the bottom line and make it an up or down vote at the end of the day on voting day is not necessarily practical, nor is it reasonable in my opinion. They weren't able to justify it before the town council, and so I have a hard time feeling that we have the justification for it here. The library staff did get a raise back in 2010, I believe, when the rest of the town staff didn't, because the library board chose to give the staff a raise, and now they're coming back and coming up with the $10,000 based on a $1,500 raise the staff got a year or two later based on medical insurance cost. So to try and say that they have been treated unfairly, I think is a little bit out of line, and would recommend that you not vote for this amendment.
Go ahead.
Rosati, 15 Dunbarton Drive. Understand that this is not them asking for it. This was me remembering from the last town council that they went up ahead. I was not able to stay for the full meeting, and today when they came in, I asked if it passed or not, and they said no, it did not. So that this is a town person coming up and saying if they have not had a raise, I don't think they're asking for anything unreasonable here. They haven't had a raise. I am just coming as a town citizen suggesting that perhaps it would be nice to give them a raise if they haven't had one for a few years. So this has nothing to do with the library asking for this again. This is a town citizen saying that I think people should be paid fairly for what they're working. Thank you.
I'm Carol Lang again. I'm not sure if there's anyone here prepared to answer this question, possibly from library staff or something. Maybe someone could answer it, but I'm wondering if anybody can give me approximately, on average, whether our library staff are paid commensurate with surrounding towns, higher, lower. Is there some ballpark answer to that question?
Anybody have it? Eileen?
During the discussion of the library potentially employees getting a raise, they have much different setup than most of the town employees because they have an awful lot of part-time people. So what I'm told is that the library staff, I'll get to your question, your answer in a minute, but the library staff got a raise. I'm not sure how much it was back in 2010 when I was not here. And then all of the unions agreed to a $1,500 raise for 1 year for a 3-year contract that got added to the base. The library got that as well a couple of years ago, but their part-time staff did not. So in their proposal, they proposed to give the employees, the part-time employees, a 73-cent an hour raise, which equates to $1,500 a year. And when we looked at it, when the council looked at it from a perspective of comparing apples to apples from other types of communities, although it was difficult to do because each one is a little bit different, it didn't make sense. It seemed that many of them were paid higher than surrounding communities. Some were not, some were.
Thank you. Nancy?
Although I was not there that evening, I do remember later looking at the comparison in other towns, and they were towns that were similar in size. The demographics were similar, and they were within that range. And I also asked, looking at the other departments within the town, probably half of the part-time employees in the library make more per diem than some of the fire department per diem. So for me, that helped me understand that, okay, that's reasonable.
All right, thank you for the help.
Anyone else want to speak to the amendment?
Jennifer Jobin, 42 Mary Meeting Drive. I'm the chair of the Library Board of Trustees. I concur with what Eileen said about, we did a comparison of towns. I can tell you which communities. Bedford, Salem, Hudson, Derry, which we did provide to the town council. As it is, it's apples to apples as close as we can. We do have some employees who are above those ranges because they're long-term employees, and others are below it. So I guess if you averaged it all out, they would be within the ranges of other towns.
Thank you. Any other further discussion about adding the $10,000 onto the bottom line of the budget? Seeing none, voters, you should have a gray card. All those in favor of the amendment to add $10,000 to the bottom line of the budget, raise your cards, please. All those opposed? No question there. The article fails. We're moving back on to discussion on the full budget.
Tim, 10 Hafe, 72 Amherst Road.
Thank you.
But I like it lower.
Close
it
enough.
does too.
That's good. That's good enough.
I heard the discussion earlier, and I wanted to make a statement. Basically, your job, the council's job with the budget is done. It's over. They've passed it to the voters. It's now our budget. It's our budget to decide what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, how much money we want to provide our town leaders to govern this town with. So at this point, I think You should be really careful in your comments and realize that it's now our budget. That's what we're talking about.
Any further discussion on our budget? Dan?
Thank you, Tim. I want to back up Tim's comment, what I was trying to accomplish, because if we can't give it to deliberative session, I don't care if it's 10 people or 100, then why have deliberative session? So what I was asking might have been binding, but if the cards all went up a certain way, I would be feeling different after tonight. So thanks, Tim, because that's what it's all about.
Seeing no further discussion, Article 2 will move to the ballot as printed. We're going to move forward on to Article number 3. Shall the Town of Merrimack vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Merrimack Town Council and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees 93 Local 2986, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. Fiscal year 2015-16, wage increase of $173,451, and cost benefits a negative $138,429. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $35,022, such sum representing the anticipated increase in the salaries and benefits over those of the appropriation at current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal year. The passage of this article will result in employees covered by the collective bargaining agreement contributing 10% towards health and dental insurance premiums and changing their health care to $20 office visit, $10, $20, and $45 pharmacy copay. These savings have been factored into the estimated increases and decreases set forth above. The collective bargaining agreement covers the labors of the Public Works Department to include highway, wastewater, solid waste, and equipment maintenance divisions. Bill? Move as printed?
Move as presented.
And Tom, that's a second. Thank you. Bill, you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and through you to the community. This is a one-year agreement. It brings the local 2986 collective bargaining unit in alignment with all the other collective bargaining units within the town of Merrimack. As you have heard and have read, the real big piece is the significant savings that the town is going to realize from the health care benefits, going from their current plan to a different kind of pharmacy copay, along with a higher employee contribution to the premium. So this gives the community, gives the town some future flexibility with our budgeting. And I want to thank Eileen and Paul and the local 2986 for coming together to put this agreement into place so that it can be presented to you, the voters. So thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 3? Stan?
Stan Heinrich, 8 Edgewood Ave. I have a couple of questions. First, why only a one-year contract? Now we're going to have to go through all the expense of negotiating again with what I heard earlier to be 6 unions total all at once?
Yeah, but we're going to be renegotiating those contracts next year. So the one-year contract brings this unit in alignment with all the other 6 units, and then the other 5 units, excuse me. And then come next year when it comes to renegotiate, Eileen and the team will be negotiating with all 6 units all at the same time, as opposed to having it being 2 here, 1 here.
Also, I notice missing from this warrant article is the option for the town councilors to have a second meeting if they need to for this, should it get defeated by the voters, to just have another cost item or negotiation. So I'm assuming that if this doesn't pass, those employees, too bad you don't have any chance of getting a raise this year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Eileen?
In answer to your question as to why we would want to do a one-year contract, We have, as other municipalities and businesses are concerned about the Affordable Care Act and the implications of the Cadillac tax on our health insurance programs. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to get everybody lined up and have their contract end at the same time so that we could negotiate toward a end where we didn't end up having to pay big penalties from the Cadillac tax perspective. So we wanted everybody eventually to be on a better health insurance plan on behalf of the taxpayers, so we wouldn't have to pay that penalty.
Okay.
Nancy?
No.
You're all right. Anybody else want to speak to this article? Seeing none, Article 3 will move to the warrant as printed, and I would be happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Bill. See you next year, folks.